Alrighty folks, welcome to our testing of the CRKT rescue knife. It is in used condition, but it is very sharp. It runs super smooth. You can collapse this on its own. The flipper works just fine. So it is basically razor sharp. I could shave my legs with it if I wanted to. So everything about this knife is ready for some action, and this is the way it works. Before we start our how to use testing, you can also open it like this. So it really runs very nicely. There is no blade play on it whatsoever. It is ready to go, and we'll see whether we can beat it up and damage it with some hard but not unreasonably hard use. So let us start our testing right now. So let's see how the edge does when we work on wood a little bit. It's pretty dry wood, not too soft, not too hard. Very typical for Austria. And this is actually a little bit wet inside. Yeah, I already did some work like that with the knife before, prepared firewood, and I already know it performs very well. Just to show you. So we cut all the way down here, feathered that up like in no time, no problem at all. This also works with much harder wood. What I observed is that with this type of blade you really have four tools in one. You have this area which lends itself to very fine, meticulous work. Do it like this. You have very precise command over the blade. You can do very fine, very detailed work. Then you have this area where you have a whole lot of you can exert a whole lot of energy in that particular area. It's pretty interesting. Then you have your normal blade. This is the normal blade that you would have on any other knife, and you do normal work with that, maybe a little bit of slashing. And then of course you have the serrations. Now many people don't like serrations, but once you start working with serrations you will notice that serrations just have more cutting power than a normal blade shape. Now they are harder to sharpen as well, but it's not a big problem with, for example, the Victorinox sharpener. So normal woodwork is definitely not a problem with this Tanto style blade. Again, I did much more than I did right now with that one. Also on very hard wood. It does a fine job like any other quality knife. And I like those particular features of the blade. So the Tanto area and this area of the bend, the normal blade and the serrations. So this is actually a very versatile tool. Now, as for the auto lock system, like here you see the little lever. You have to disengage the lever, then you disengage the normal liner lock, and only then the knife closes. So what I found out, this does not increase the overall strength of the locking mechanism. It just prevents that you disengage the liner lock by accident. So basically you have a double lock system, and it's much more unlikely that you disengage first the auto lock system and then the liner lock, and then the knife or the blade collapses on you. That will never happen. That would be a freak accident. While if you just have, for example, back lock or just a liner lock, in a panic situation or some kind of freak accident, the knife could collapse on you. But the overall strength of this locking mechanism is entirely depending on on the liner and on the strength of the liner and of the strength of the aluminum scales inside. And I know this is not as strong as, for example, a cold steel tri-lock. There are numerous tests online that show that. Nevertheless, we'll do some batoning and see how the lock holds up.
Alrighty, that was a sturdy piece of wood. Knife still works fine, just runs as smoothly as before. See, collapses just nicely, engages, nothing's bent or broken. So let's continue a little bit more. So you can prepare firewood. Should you prepare firewood with a folder? Nah, maybe not. But if you have nothing else, you don't have an axe or something like that, or a big fixed blade, the folder might have to do. Okay, so here we have a slight damage. We bent the auto lock system a little bit. That is something that was somehow foreseeable. Now it still works without a hiccup, but it's a little bit bent. Well, it's not made to be hit in this area, but it is sturdy. That's not a major problem. Let's continue our testing. Tanto knives are supposed to have great penetration power. Tanto tip is supposed to, well, just go deeper and faster into material than an ordinary knife tip. That's about the only advantage that a tanto would have. So that's why some rescue knives also have a tanto blade shape. So let's test it out. Let's open this can of outdated ravioli in tomato sauce. Nice. Ready to eat. Meal is ready to eat. So now that's good stuff. Won't be it. I don't know if that penetrates better than other blade shapes. Let's make it over. We'll see whether we did any damages to the blade. Whether it's still sharp.
Still get some shavings done. Still could go all the preparations done for firewood. Not a problem. Prepare a campfire with it. Let's do some more work here. The ergonomics on this knife are good. The handle is super. It feels very safe. Yeah, it's no longer very sharp, but you can still work with it. Probably no longer a paper cutting miracle. Time to assess the damage on this little knife. I've cleaned it, nothing else. So this is the way the blade looks now. Okay, you can see here the serrations. They look very jagged now. They have sustained some damage. I'll see how I can restore them. The blade itself seems nice. The tanto tip held up 100%. Now, just to give you a perspective on that, I have this one is a Spyderco Enduro 4 made of superior VG10 steel, whatever, but the tip on this one actually gave in a while ago. Now it's somehow rounded off. It's not very pretty. But despite the very hard use on the tanto tip, no problem. Didn't sustain any damage. Now, so we have damage on the serrations here. We have damage on the auto lock system. This little lever broke off. Of course, we did direct hits on the auto lock system. That was abuse. The knife is not intended to deal with those kind of forces. Nevertheless, it maintained its function. It just works as nicely as before. The flipper works just as good as before. So the only thing that is missing is this little tab here on the auto lock system. So I have to replace that with something. Now CRKT could do a better design on that. If you recess the auto locks a little bit downwards, then even direct hits on top of this area will not have an effect on the auto lock system at all. So I would say this knife basically held up with minor damages, but it's still operational. Let's see whether the AUS 8 steel is still able to cut anything. Let's do some paper cutting. Oh yeah, that is really blunt. So the edge is more or less gone. It is done. So let's see how I can restore this knife, if I can get it back to 100% operational. So see you in a few minutes. So it took a little while, but I refurbished my knife. It looks good again. Applied some oil. The blade is intact. It's at least paper cutting sharp again. It was very easy to sharpen it. It was more difficult to find a replacement for this little thumb stud right here. But I managed to find the right screw, and then put some plastic around it. Now it has even better ergonomics than before. So it runs smooth. So let me show you. It's paper cutting again. Yeah, it should be paper cutting again, sorry. Yeah, still have to do some work on the blade. Yeah, it's far from perfect, but at least it's serviceable.